way. And why does everyone here look much older than me? I'm not quite sure. She would say things like that. That was also part of her kavua. She knew how to lay out a very well-intentioned, soft-pedaled zinger every now and then. I admired that in her. My mother is very similar. So like Queen Elizabeth, an era really has come to an end. I forgot to find out from the family who was going to speak and when. I imagine we have two groups of grandchildren going to be represented. So at the risk of missing people, first I'm going to call on Brad, Danny, and Andy, and then Jen, Joanna, Eliza, and Natalie. I asked them to come forward together, and then in any order they wish, they may offer their remarks.
My name is Brad, and I'm the grandson of Lois Blitt. And I'd like to read this story of my grandma. My grandma was fun to be with. When I was younger, I would sleep at her house, which I really enjoyed. My grandma and I would talk about sports. She would always ask what time the Broncos games would be on. She was a big Avalanche fan. I enjoyed eating out with her and spending special occasions with her. She would call me if I went out. She wanted me to call when I got home. I will miss when my grandma called me and the times we would talk about the Broncos and Avs and how they were doing. I will really miss her a lot. She was a fun, caring, and loving grandma too. To have. She was very generous to all of us and loved us so much.
Hi, my name is Dan, and I was also one of Lois's grandsons. It is with deep sympathy that I speak to you today about our grandma, Lois Blitt. However, I also speak to you today with great honor, love, and pride as we get to articulate what a wonderful, loving, happy, kind, accepting, funny, and amazing person she was, and how she was able to make such an indelible imprint on me and our family. Looking back over my years growing up as a child, probably one of the most lasting memories I have of my grandma is the warm and inviting home she and my grandpa created for us. I remember so many of the various holidays and family occasions we had in their home with all of our aunts, uncles, cousins, second cousins, great aunts and uncles, friends of the family, and sometimes even strangers. As a child, teenager, and then adult with my own children, I so enjoyed going to my grandma and grandpa's home, knowing that I would be welcomed with love, warmth, and the many traditions of a Jewish home. Even later in life, when she no longer hosted events, but we would still go over and visit her, I continued to have the same experiences entering her home, knowing I was entering a home of love, kindness, and happiness. In a home where above all else, family always came first. It was the legacy that my grandma and grandpa left on me. As we stand here today, my grandma, and grandpa left a direct legacy of 3 children, 8 grandchildren, and 28 great-grandchildren, with 1 on the way. But the numbers don't do justice. What is truly amazing is the closeness of our family, even being thousands of miles apart and on different continents throughout the world. My grandma and grandpa imprinted in all of us the vital importance and strength of family, and we are all kind, healthy, happy, and have a strong moral compass today as a byproduct of both of them. Our grandma has been such an important and inspirational leader of our entire family for so many years, and she will sorely be missed, but never forgotten. It also won't come as a surprise to any of you that my grandma was known as one of the happiest people you could ever meet. She was also one of the most fashionable. Laura would always comment to me over the years what an elegant and beautiful way that my grandma always carried herself. She always had a smile on her face, a wonderful laugh, giving us a laugh as well, enjoyed life and friends, and appreciated a good joke. She used to tell us that the apartment building that she was living in for the past year was full of old people, even though she was 95 and probably one of the oldest residents. But she made sure her hair was always done and her fingernails were manicured, making sure she felt the youngest. I know it might sound a little crude, but even visiting her in the hospital last Sunday, she was still making jokes with us. She couldn't figure out why so many of us had rushed to the hospital to see her. And God bless her, she just matter-of-factly said, "Gosh, why are you all here? You would think I was dying or something." My grandma was also one of the most mentally sharpest people I have ever known. She remembered everything, and having a conversation with her up through her last days was as if I was still talking to my grandma I knew from 40 years ago. She was always so with it. She played mahjong and could name all 28 great-grandchildren's names. I enjoyed talking to my grandma over the phone, even when I couldn't see her often. But what I loved most about these conversations was listening to her tell me that she loved me, and in return, me telling her that I loved her. Each time we exchanged these words of love, it meant the world to me, including the last time I saw her in the hospital last Sunday. I know for a fact that I am a better person, family man, son, husband, and father today because of my grandma and the strong values, sense of family, and everlasting love that she and my grandpa live by and demonstrated every day. These foundations she helped create have helped me lead the life I live and continue to guide me throughout life. I only hope I will be as loving, happy, warm, and caring as my grandma was, and somehow provide those same values to my children and grandchildren. Grandma, you are such an amazing woman, and although we are saddened today by your passing, we also know you will continue to watch over us and share with us many more simchas and happy occasions as the matriarch of our family that you have always been. We love you forever, and we will never forget all that you have done and sacrificed for us. All our love.
Hi, I'm Andy. I'm Marcella's youngest. Lois Blitt was an incredible mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother. She was the matriarch of a family spanning across the globe. She and my grandfather Harold built a legacy that will last for many generations. She was one of a kind. I can never understand why my brothers and I refer to her as grandma while my other cousins refer to her as Bobby. After asking my mom, I learned that it was because when my brothers and I were born, she thought that she was far too young to be a Bobby, so she preferred grandma. Growing up, we would take long road trips for vacation or to visit extended family. At breakfast, she would say that she was never hungry enough to order her own meal, but then would proceed to pick and choose her favorites off of everyone else's. She and my grandfather were beyond generous, always thinking of their family and community first. They were the ultimate givers. In fact, rather than replacing her own aging carpet, she spray painted it to avoid spending the money. She always told it how it was. Never cruel, but always honest. She would respond to a child's name she felt was unusual with, "Well, that's interesting." My grandmother was full of love. Love for the color purple, love for a great bargain, but more than that, telling you about the great bargain. Love for her husband and children, but most of all, love for her grandchildren and 28 great-grandchildren. She was an incredible woman who lived a life we should all aspire to. We love her and will miss her dearly.
I'm first going to say a few words on behalf of my father, who's here, but he can't stand here right now because he's a Kohen. So this is what he wrote. When I look around, I wonder if you are all thinking what I'm thinking. How is this possible? How is it possible that mom is not here? Now I know that we are all logical people. We understand that people age and they eventually die. Today is my father's yahrzeit. But mom was always there. Whenever we visited, whenever we called, she was there. Vibrant, funny, caring, always caring. That's how she was, and that's how she will be remembered. I thought I had a special, unique son-in-law relationship with her, and I did. But what I came to realize is that she had a special, unique relationship with each of her son-in-laws. We called her mom, not just as a sign of respect and love, but truly as a mother-son relationship. Her tone of speech would change when she spoke about the love of her life. She and Dad were the epitome of a happily married couple, devoted to each other, and she carried on as the matriarch of the family after Dad passed away. A matriarch is defined as the ultimate head of the family or tribe, and that's what she was. She passed those traits of caring and compassion onto each of her daughters. Their devotion to their families might be expected, but that carries on to caring for their fellow men and women, and that was a hallmark of Mom and Dad's legacy. I will miss her greatly, and she will be greatly remembered. Her memory will live on in her children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. I truly don't know where to begin. Bobby was such an inspiration and role model, beautiful both inside and out. She always maintained a youthfulness and beauty about her that made it hard to believe that she was well into her 90s. Bobby cared so much about others, always worrying and thinking about helping out someone in need or distress. But as far-reaching as her goodness and sweetness was to everyone she knew, we as her family were the luckiest recipients of her unconditional love and devotion. I feel incredibly blessed that I was able to spend time with Bobby a number of times in the past few weeks. One night, when she was already in the ICU and I came to visit her, she was happy to see me, but more than anything concerned that I had come by myself and needed to drive home alone. She was so weak and tired, but she almost begged me to call her when I got back home. Because she didn't have a phone in her hospital room, I told her that I would call the nurse's station when I got back home and would ask them to give her the message. She seemed satisfied with that solution, and I called the nurse into the room before I left so that I could get the direct line to relay the message to her. As I was leaving, I could see that she was trying to tell me something. The nurse happened to be in the room at the time and removed her heavy-duty oxygen mask for a few seconds. Her voice was barely audible, and with tremendous effort, she said, "Make sure someone walks you out." Even in ICU, only a day or two before she passed away, Bobby was so kind and caring, worrying about everyone except herself. We all felt the unconditional love she had for us so deeply, and we will all miss her so much each and every day. Bobby, I treasured the many years I was blessed to share with you, and I will love you forever.
One of the hardest things about moving to Israel almost 9 years ago was knowing that it would mean not being able to see Bobby as often. But even though we didn't get to see Bobby in person as often as we would have liked, we made sure to speak with Bobby regularly. Every phone call ended with me expressing to my family just how amazing Bobby was. She was so sharp, so perceptive, so thoughtful, so generous. Bobby would ask about each of the kids by name, wondering what they were up to. She'd ask what we were cooking for Shabbos or the holidays, and ask if we had everything we needed. She didn't just ask to make conversation, she listened and she cared. Once before the holiday, she asked if I bought meat. I mentioned that I had gotten some, but not much because I had run out of freezer space. In an instant, she responded, "Joanna, go buy another freezer. I'll pay for it." And she didn't stop asking me about it until I had confirmed that, in fact, I had purchased one. That was Bobby. She only wanted the best for us, and she cared more for our needs than she did for her own. Over the years, I treasured these conversations even more because I realized how unique it was to have a Bobby so advanced and aged who was so in tune with what was going on in the lives of her grandchildren and great-grandchildren. I didn't take it for granted. None of us did. Over the past few months, our conversations seemed to last longer. Bobby was so engaging, and I would even put the phone on speaker so the kids could hear her voice and listen to what she had to say. During what would turn out to be one of our last conversations, Bobby asked me who was making so much noise in the background, knowing that for me it was very late at night. I told her that it was Lonnie, my 2-year-old, who was still up because unfortunately I couldn't figure out how to get her to sleep. Bobby spent the rest of the conversation trying to think of ways to help me get my little one to sleep, even recalling what she had done for her own kids so many years ago. Bobby listened, she empathized, she cared, and she tried to help, no matter how distant we were or how seemingly unimportant our issue was. At the time, I recognized and appreciated how special that conversation was and acknowledged how much it meant to me. But now that I'll remember it as one of our last, it will always be a reminder to me of the way Bobby so deeply loved and cared about each and every one of us with all of her heart. Bobby treasured all of us and spared no effort or expense to let us know that. Bobby, we will always remember how much you loved us and hope that you will always know how much we loved and cherished you. Okay. Now we're going to read some words from my sister Jessica, who is, please God, expecting a baby very soon and couldn't make it here. But it was so hard for her not to be here. And on behalf of her, this is what she says. It's so hard to be far away from all of you today. I so badly wanted to be with all of you, my parents, sisters, aunts, uncles, and cousins, to reminisce and cry and laugh about our incredible memories that we have of Bobby. I can actually hear Bobby's voice telling me, "Don't you dare get on a plane, Jessica," in her stern and concerning voice. And I suppose knowing that I'm doing what Bobby would want of me is comforting. When I sat down to write something up, it occurred to me that to describe Bobby feels like a cliche. She was pure and simple goodness. Her life was her family, period. There was nothing in the world that she cared about more than her children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. She was the most loving, generous-hearted, thoughtful, and simple person. Like I said, it feels cliche. She was simple and pure goodness. When I think back to the memories of her as a kid, I remember how she used to drive me to Hill Academy every morning after Elisa was born, so my mom wouldn't need to take Lizzie out in the cold. She always kept cans of pop in her trunk, which my mom never bought, and every day I got to take a can to school. I loved it. She used to drop off yummy treats for us like frozen ice cream desserts or pies or Little Debbie's or carrot cake or sometimes a melon. When we moved to Houston, she bought kosher dishes and pots and pans and blenders and toasters and everything you can imagine so that when we came in the summer, we weren't lacking a thing. Rosh Hashanah and Pesach time, she would buy us new dresses. Of course, there were the quirky things we all loved and remember about her, like painting her bushes and grass during a drought, or covering the air freshener bottles in tape or wrapping paper to match the bathroom, or covering the front side of the lampshade to match the decor in the room, or how she set the table a week in advance and labeled each serving dish with a little scrap of paper and scribbled what food item it was intended to serve.
It didn't matter how old we were. If we spoke to her when we weren't home, we had to call her when we got home. I used to use my car ride home from work as a time to call her because it was quiet. But she never liked that, even though I told her I didn't need to hold my phone. When we got older, she was always sure to call to make sure we heard about any recalls on baby gear items. Or when there was a main water bust in Houston, or we had to boil our water. She called to make sure we were doing so. She always loved hearing what I made for Shabbos, and every week she wanted the cookbook, and she wanted to know the ingredients that went into it. So she wanted to go make it herself. And I will miss you so. This is from me now. it, it wouldn't even occur to you to get upset. If we wrote a thank you note, it was great. But if we didn't, you weren't waiting and expecting it. You just looked at everyone with a positive eye. You didn't read into things, and you knew that no matter what, we all loved you with our whole hearts. You and Zeta were the most generous grandparents imaginable, and you did it all while expecting nothing in return. I hope that I can grow to be as amazing a mother, grandmother, and great grandmother as you were. Always seeing everyone in a positive light, having no expectations, and giving without bounds. I will love you forever, my Bubby.
Hi, I'm Natalie, Melody's daughter. Oh, those are all beautiful speeches. Bubby was such an amazing person. I have so many amazing memories of my Bubby, but I thought it would be really nice to share some of the ones that always make me smile. So I live in London, but visit Colorado. My favorite thing that Bubby would cook would be her homemade potato soup. However, it was my favorite until one time I was at her house and I had a mouthful that was crunchier than it should be. And it definitely was not a potato. And she was wondering what it was. And then she was looking around and then she looked down at her hands and noticed that one of her acrylic nails really put off her potato soup for quite the fact. And my cousins have already told this, but Bubby took so much pride in her appearance. She would always, as we said, get her nails and hair done, and still did until she died. Even at the hospital, I told her her hair looked good because it did. She still looked beautiful. And she gave me a glare because she didn't think it was the case, which I thought, was really funny. And actually, the hospital staff really couldn't believe her age and how amazing she looked. At the age of 90, Bubby came across the world, or halfway across the world, to my wedding in London, and literally was one of the last people standing at the wedding. For the wedding, there was a lot of gatherings and she attended everything. And there's only one or two things she ate that she thought was different. That was one of her words when she didn't like something. One thing that always makes me laugh as well is seeing some of the photos from the day because of the height difference between my husband, Tom, and her. Bubby literally came up to his waist. So the wedding photos are pretty funny. Bubby went on many adventures with my mother and aunt, including a trip to Amsterdam when she was in her 80s. Basically, Amsterdam is a city full of beautiful architecture, art, and history. But if you take the wrong corner, things can get a bit less so. And that's exactly what happened. We took a wrong turn, and before we knew it, we were in the middle of the red light district. And I'll never forget pushing Bubby out of there as quickly as I could. I have so many more funny, but also beautiful and amazing memories of my Bubby. She was, as you know, one of the most sharp-witted women I've ever known and has made me laugh and everyone laugh countless times. She was always so generous and was probably the strongest woman I have ever known. What a woman she really was. Bubby, be as resilient as you were. You were the matriarch of our family, and you will forever be missed. I really hope you're with Zeta laughing together. I love you.
Grandchildren have offered some beautiful memories and impressions of their grandmother, their Bubby. Children are not going to speak, but I would be remiss if I didn't point out, for the benefit of everyone, that Lois, our tradition says, many angels accompany our souls on its journey to heaven. Well, Lois was also blessed to have angels here on earth, and her three wonderful daughters, two of whom lived right here, were on site all the time, Marcella and Melody, and Darlene from a distance, but whenever she was here, it was like she just fit right in and did what needed to be done. Each of them did their mother proud. Each of them lived up to the values that their mother exemplified. And I just wanted everyone to know that on her behalf. We're going to lower the casket in just a moment. And when the casket is lowered, we're going to do a ceremony called Kriya. In the ancient world, Kriya involved tearing a garment. And if you think for a moment, not everyone had multiple garments, not of purple, not of any color. People had one, maybe two. To rip a garment was quite an investment, not only emotionally, but also financially. The tearing of a garment was seen as a cathartic act. Not everyone wants to tear clothing. Some are going to do something else, and I have those things in my hand, and these will be worn throughout the Shiva. And we're going to ask the family to rise, and we're going to make a bracha. And after the bracha, we're all going to answer Amen. So I'm going to do that. The casket can be lowered. Then we're going to start placing earth into Lois's final resting place. And we're going to do our best not only to cover the casket, but also to fill the grave as much as possible. Baruch atah Adonai Elohim melech haolam dayan ha'emet. Blessed are you, Lord our God, Lord of the world, and we believe so righteous. Yashov ha'afar al ha'aretz v'shahaya ha'ruach tashuv el Elohim asher nitana. The dust of the earth as it was. The spirit returns unto God who gave. We'll invite Lois's immediate family to place earth into the grave, and then everyone who wishes to do so may do this. We just ask that you do not hand the shovel to the next person, place it back into the pile of earth, and let each person take it on his or own power. Come from either side.
This right here. This one.
See you. Where were you standing? I know Eric. Sad.
Look today, there was no arrangement.
Probably be in a couple of days.
Oh, yeah, I did.
You know,
Bird watching this, and I don't think, you know, we have like.
what's his mother's name?
He was at the end.
What's his mother's name? Marion. Marion Shores.
Mark, he was my.
She lives in the other building.
It's
You're the
Karen.
same age as my brother.
It's
She passed away.
Karen, Judy. It was,
See, this is Judy Silver.
it's me.
That's Judy C.
Now I'm Judy Howard.
She looks better than ever.
50 years.
Is she beautiful?
I understand.
Isn't she beautiful?
I'm getting on board.
They're lovely. Takes after her auntie, right?
Have you go say goodbye.
Yeah, what was wrong with it? I mean, it said in that-
Excuse me.
Is that what it was? I mean,
He
it
got
just,
sick about 3 years ago.
the Jewish people they make food calls and we used to go out to eat all together. And whenever something happens, they put a message. I get an email telling me what's going on. That's how I do that.
Thank you. Oh, did you ever see your
Lois's brother?
Yes. They did.
That's Lois's brother?
Yes.
Yeah, she
Well, no,
Oh, he's younger.
I don't know how much.
This is the short version of the cottage today show. Oh, wait.
Sat down.
Yes, I'll put it together. Absolutely. Yeah. But it's the short version. Oh, I appreciate Oh, I'm sorry.
That was Bob Nancy.
In their unique way, was able to know. I didn't say it. Yeah, it was thank you. Very special. Needless to say, she loved. She had a lot of muscle, but she carried it well. Like my she did it. Oh, Mari, she just routine. Okay, go. Okay, whenever we're. I'm not worried. It's always so concerned about she was yeah, baby. I am. Yeah. It's always so it happens that I was here. We were going from supposed to be most of Shabbos. We used to be and like used to go Sunday. So now we're like Thursday. She couldn't be here to her apartment. She realized that, you know, by spending Shiva there. So nice. A healthy mom, boy or girl, another. She's always so proud of her. Just, you know, she was easy to talk to. A lot of funny anecdotes and things that made a person, but there was that common thread. She loved us officially. She loved us.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to gather again.
The final resting place is almost completed.
Debbie, you were in our home.
Look out, I'm going actually.
Okay, that way.
Devin, I tell that story all the time. Devin, get over here. Thank you. It's perfect. Are you okay? You have some health concerns. Because you look amazing. Yeah, you wouldn't know it.
Did you say goodbye, Lois? I say goodbye, Lois.
Yeah, no.
Devin and Brian.
Yeah, they're doing fine.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move to the conclusion of our funeral. We're going to have the words of the mourners Kaddish being said for the first time for Lois, and just a word about the Kaddish. The mourners are the ones who say the Kaddish, but we have to answer Amen to the Kaddish. And Amen, very short, 3-letter word, one of the shortest in the Hebrew language. Contraction of 3 words, El Melech, ruler. And when we answer Amen to a Kaddish or to a blessing, we propel the energy of what is being said out into the universe. When we don't say Amen, we are impeding the energy. So we should never underestimate the power of an Amen. So Marcella, Melody, Darlene, Shimmy are going to say the words of the Kaddish, and we'll answer Amen and Yehi Shmei Rabbah. Appropriate times. Amen. Ba'agala ulizman kariv yimru Amen Yehi Shmei Rabbah Levarach Leolam Ulamei Olmaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yithadzar v'yit'aleh v'yit'alal Shemei Kushabri Ve'ela Yikobrachata v'shirata Tushbachata v'nechemasa Ta'amiran bi'olma v'meru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shmaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'meru amen. Oseh shalom b'mrama kol Yisrael v'meru amen.
As most of you know, we are in the month of Nisan, and so many of the normal things we would have done today, we didn't do. And among those is the Kemalei Rachamim. We use a different form, but it's a very special form. I think it's reserved for tzaddikim, for the righteous, because it asks that our loved one pray for us in heaven, and that God should remember the good deeds that she performed in this world. Elo haslichot, chanun v'rachum, chapayim v'rav chesed, hamitzeh chaparat pesha, v'hakrava v'yeshav, u'menucha nechona tacha kanefei hashechina b'mahalot kedoshim v'diyarim kezah harakia mazehirim edenishmat leikvat Yaakov echana shehalecha leolama ana bal horachamim Zachrala letova kol zechuyoteha v'tzidkoteha ve'artzot hachayim ufetach la sharei tzedek ve'ora sharei chemela Chanina b'seiter kenafecha hastireha leolamim v'titzror b'tzor chaim et ishmata Adonai hu nachalata v'tanuach b'shalom al mishkava v'nomar amen.
This concludes the formal part of our service here at the cemetery. Shiva is going to begin immediately following the burial today. And Shiva will take place here in Denver today, Monday, tomorrow, and tomorrow, Tuesday, and Wednesday, according to the following hours. Today, after the burial, tonight, there's going to be a minyan, and there'll be a minyan each evening of Shiva here at 7:15 for both Mincha and Maariv. On Tuesday and Wednesday, Shiva will be as follows: 10 a.m. till 11:30, 3 to 5, and then 7 to 9 with the service again at 7:15 on both of those evenings. These breaks allow the family to sort of regroup and eat a little bit and prepare to welcome anyone who wants to come. And the Shiva is going to be taking place at the home of Marcella and Steve Wolf in Lowry, 968 Syracuse Street in Denver, 80230. Your presence at Shiva. Your presence at the services for the next 3 evenings would be a source of comfort and a tribute to Lois, of course, and overall the right thing to do. Thank you all for being here. You may return to your cars.
Debbie?
Your mom.